Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is part 15 of the overview, research, and sample lessons. In our last section, we talked about how you can combine adjectives with nouns to draw, read, and write labels that form two-word phrases. In this section, we're going to be forming two-word phrases by adding verbs to our nouns. Before we do that, though, I want to give you just a real quick activity that is a lot of fun and easy to use. We did it with our daughter when she was in preschool and when she was in kindergarten. I've done it in my kindergarten, first and second grade classrooms. You can do it while the kids are sitting and watching you. You can do it while they're standing in line. It's really useful and develops great word recognition skills. I'm simply going to gesture sounds, and I'll start out with some verbs. And when the children recognize the verb, then they need to perform it. So if I go j for juggling, for up, for moving a magic mop, and p for painting. So I'm going to go j, and now the kids jump. So now I can go w, ig, all, and now the kids wiggle. Now I can go rock, and the kids rock back and forth. So at first I'll go ahead and say the sounds as I'm gesturing them, but later I won't say the sounds, I'll just simply do the gesturing. And the kids stand. Now you can do the same thing if you've got some toys out in front of the kids. Owl. And a child's chosen to come up and pick up the owl. That was riding, adding, and tickling. And the child comes up and shows me the rat. Ugh. And they blend the word and come up with bug. And of course you can slow it down, repeat it, do whatever's necessary, and then scaffold it until the kids become really proficient at it. Now if you're just out and about and you don't have any toys or anything with you, you can still do it. Everybody show me d, or. They go, oh, there's a door, there's a door, there's a door. And they get really excited when they can find it in multiple places. Everybody show me d, t. Oh, there's some dirt. Or not so much in San Diego, but in many places of the country, you could show me some snow. So great activity, and I would do it frequently and do it anywhere that you are when you need something to do. Before we go into our drawing and labeling, I briefly mentioned Glenn Capelli, who was a presenter from Australia, who talked about the Aborigines and how they were able to preserve their culture and history by simply remembering. And the way they remembered well was everything they did used the four basic art forms. They did singing, storytelling, drawing, and movement. And if you combine all of those things at the same time, rather than stretching them out, then you're going to have them located in many areas of the brain that communicate with each other. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. When he was presenting, he talked about that the Aborigines of Australia did all of their drawing with four basic shapes. They used circles that don't have to be round. They used dots, which again don't have to be round, straight lines, and curved lines. I learned my drawing techniques from Mona Brooks, and she teaches 5 elements, which begin with the same 4 elements that Glenn Capelli talked about with the Aborigines, but she adds the angle line, which is just 2 straight lines meeting at a point. So I tend to focus more on the first 4 that the Aborigines use, but occasionally you might drop in the term angle line. So we are, in this lesson, going to draw something else, and then we're going to label it, and we'll start adding some verbs to our nouns. So you have a choice. If you're working with second language kids or you're working with very young children, I would tell them what you're going to draw, create a context by accessing prior knowledge and by reading literature. But as you're working with older children, they may listen better if they don't know what it is that you're drawing. So as I talked about last time, you could start out with that dragnet, dum da dum dum dum, and the kids go mystery draw, and they take out their paper and their pens and they're ready to draw. Everybody show me your ready position. And again, we're not going to eat a marshmallow. We're going to wait, okay? So first I'm going to draw 2 circles on my page. Now you can draw 2 circles and I'll wait while you draw. Show me when you're ready to draw pupils. Now we can choose wherever we want the pupil to be. And if you leave a little bit of it white, it gives a little bit more expression. Show me when you're ready for a nose. I'm going to make a curve like this for the nose this time. Show me when you're ready for a mouth. Here's my mouth. Show me when you're ready for an ear. Or let's see, let's go for hair this time. Let's go up this way, down this way. Now show me when you're ready for an ear. Let's come up here and make an ear. Come up here and make an ear. Show me when you're ready to finish the hair. Let's come from this ear all the way over the top and down to this ear and add a line there so you have a part. Show me when you're ready for a chin. Let's come from the ear all the way down underneath for a chin. Show me when you're ready for a knot. Let's come in a little bit here, and flat across the bottom. Show me when you're ready for a collar. Let's make an angle line here, so you can use that term sometimes. Show me when you're ready for shoulders. Let's come across this way and down. Come across this way and down. Show me when you're ready for sleeves. I'm going to come in a little bit and then angle up towards the collar. Come in and angle up towards the collar. Show me when you're ready for the body. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to give him a belt. Show me when you're ready for legs. We'll come down, and if you run out of room at the bottom of your paper, that's all right. And put a line down the center. Show me when you're ready for arms. I'm going to come out a little and then down by the belt. Out a little and angle down by the belt. And do the same thing on this side. Show me when you're ready to finish his tie. I'll come out just a little bit, and you can make the tie as fat or as skinny as you want. Now let's see what we drew a picture of. Raise your hand if you think you know what we drew, but don't tell anyone. Let's see, this may be a word that you don't know. I'm going to put an E. Show me the sound for E, eh. Show me the sound for N, nibbling. Show me the sound for T, and that says ent. What could we call our picture that is an ent? Well, let's see. G has 2 sounds. Most of the time it goes G for gliding, but sometimes it goes J for juggling. If we use our juggling sound, what would this word say? J-e-n-t. Sometimes men are called gents, which is short for gentleman. Now, if he's a gentleman, what might he do? He might do this. Everybody put an O and a W on your page. What's one of our sounds for OW is ow. So everybody go ow. Now, if we put a B in front of that, we are bowing, and that word says bow. Now, we're going to put a line under it because we often line up when we go places. Cars follow lines, railroad tracks are lines, crosswalks are lines. So lines help us move, and so we put lines under our words that help us move, and those are called verbs, okay? What else could we call this? Put an O and a Y on your page. What's the sound for O-Y? Oi for oiling. Put a B in front again. What's our sound for B? B for bowing. Let's put it together. B. Oi. Now what are we going to call him? A boy. What is something a boy might like to do? Put an A and a Y at the end of your page. What does A-Y spell? A for Abe skating to the bay. What ends with A that a boy would like to do? Oh, play. What's the first sound you hear? P, P for painting. What's the next sound? L, L for laying your head on lemon leaves. And now let's put a line under it because that's a verb. That's something you can do. And let's tie our string. Okay. What's another thing we could call this? Put an A. What's the sound for A? A for adding. Put an N. Show me nibbling. And put those two together. An. What could this be that ends with an? Oh, man. What's it start with? How do we spell that? For moving your magic mop. Now, let's see. What is this man doing? He can show me A again. A. Show me N again. N. Show me D for dancing. That word says and. What can he do that ends with and? Oh, stand. What's the first sound? S. That's for surfing. What's the next sound? T for tickling. And let's put a line under that word. Let's see. Can we call him anything else? Let's start with a D. What's the sound of D? D. What's the sound of A? A. What's the sound of D again? And if we put those together, what do we have? Now we could call him a dad. So we've got all kinds of things that we can call him. What's something that a dad might do? Let's go. Show me the sound for I. Show me the sound for N. So we got I. Oh, these last two go together. Show me the sound for NG. Ring your gong. Now let's put those together. Ing. What can Dad do that ends with ing? Oh, he can sing. Now we can start labeling the parts. Show me this sound of I, E. I. What ends with I? Oh, tie does. What's it start with? Oh, I like the way you're tickling. Let's put a string around our tie. What's something a tie can do? Let's start with A. What's the sound of A? A. Now put your NG and ring your gong. What can a tie do that ends with ang? Oh, hang. And what's it start with? H for humming for hippie hippo. So now we could keep going and label lots of parts of our man. We could also, if we wanted to, we could give his shirt some stripes, and we could label the word stripe. We could give his pants a pocket, and we could label the pockets. We could give his tie some polka dots, and we can label polka dots. So we could just fill our whole paper with lots of words like that. Okay? So now, to find all of those words, we need books that show us lots of words that we can use. So we could read Barnyard Dance. It's one of my favorites for introducing verbs, and it sounds like this. Stomp your feet, clap your hands, everybody ready for a barnyard dance. And it's got all of these verbs included in that book, and I used some of those verbs when we were doing our labeling so that we can remember the word verb. We can go back to Brian Cleary, and here's a whole book with all of these verbs in it, and it sounds like this. It's called to root, to toot, to parachute, and it reads whether you scale a wall or a fish. So when you scale a fish, you take your knife and take off the scales, but when you scale a wall, you climb it. Or make a design on a cup or a dish, or take out the garbage or sharpen your knife. Verbs are a part of our everyday life. So verbs tell us all the different ways that we can move. Here are some pictures of some dads that my kids did in kindergarten years ago, and I love the way they all come out different. The children's pictures always make me smile, and here's a whole host of them. Then the last time that we got together, I did a labeling page with adjectives. Here's a page from a workbook that has all verbs. So you put the nouns inside the circles and you put the verbs on the lines. And then we can start to put them into songs like we've done before. So here are our pattern songs, and this is a pattern that goes like this. Katie, Katie, what can you do? Skip to Maloo, my darling. Now Katie drew a picture of herself and a bee, and she had to write something that she could do to be like a bee. So she writes, I can fly like a bee, skip to Maloo, my darling. And again, in the early stages, we can draw on the back of our page and transfer the words to the front. These were done at a later stage when children had had enough experience that they could do it all by themselves. So they made up all of these words. Here we have Byron, Byron, what can you do? Skip to Maloo, my darling. And Byron writes, I can wiggle like a tooth, skip to Maloo, my darling. So kids are thrilled when their teeth start to wiggle because that's a big deal when their new teeth come in. I love this one. Ashley writes, Ashley, Ashley, what can you do? Skip to Maloo, my darling. I can shop like a mom, skip to Maloo, my darling. Then we read a book that had a lot of verbs in it. All of these verbs down at the bottom came from this book, If You're Happy and You Know It. And it starts out reading like this. One day, a little girl was so happy she sang, If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, clap, clap. But then a bear came along, or a brown dog, and he said, No, 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 said the small brown dog. If you're happy and you know it, wave your tail, swirl, swirl. But then when an elephant heard that, he said, My tail is rather insignificant, said the elephant. So I sing, if you're happy and you know it, flap your ears, flap, flap. Now, everything in this book is happy. So there's not really a story, because if you're going to have a story, what do you have to have? And my kids have learned by talking about stories and finding the parts of stories, that stories have to have a problem. And in here, there's not a problem. So when they went to writing their own verses to this, without me saying anything, they put in story structure. And they created a problem in the first line. So this child writes, if you're hungry and you know it. Now he's got to solve his problem. So he writes, eat your hamburger. And these, you can tell, are the children were doing on their own, so, because they're using lots of Shakespearean spelling. But they're not afraid of those big words like hamburger. And here's another one that created a problem. And she writes, if you're angry and you know it, if you're moody and you know it, scratch your face. And then she, scrunch your face. If you're moody and you know it, scrunch your face. And this child writes, if you're tearful and you know it, drip water. If you're tearful and you know it, drip water. If you're tearful and you know it, then your eyes will surely show it. If you're tearful and you know it, drip water. Then the same child turned her page over on the back because she wasn't satisfied just doing one verse. And on the back of her page, she writes, if you're impatient and you know it, shout so much. If you're impatient and you know it, shout so much. And then she shows us what a shout sounds like. And she goes, ah, for her shout. A very important article came out in Newsweek back in 2010. There's a test that's been given to measure creativity, and it's been given since the 1950s. So a professor analyzed 300,000 tests to find out if tests were trending upward or downward. And what he discovered was creativity scores had been steadily rising in the United States, just like IQ scores, until 1990. And 1990 is when Texas started putting in the TOS test, and many states started with their high-stakes testing, and people started teaching directly to the test and using worksheets that looked just like the test, where there was only one answer. And if you notice on the worksheets that I give my kids, there's lots of different answers, so every child can have a different product. But when you're taking a test, everyone ideally has the same correct answer and the same product. So that's what we started moving to. Since then, creativity test scores have consistently inched downward. And then they go on to say, which is really frightening, that it is the scores of younger children in America from kindergarten through 6th grade for whom the decline is most serious. Now, the author of this study then went and asked Fortune 500 companies, what is it that you most look for in new employees? And the answer wasn't test scores, it was creativity. So we have to have a way of teaching skills that also fosters creativity, and you can see from the way the kids are filling in these pattern songs and drawing and labeling that we are fostering great creativity. So here's an example of some of the labeling that was done on a page with verbs. And this child has the suds can splash, the ear can hear, the cub can chortle. Now over on the side, I gave them a list of verbs that they might use, but chortle isn't there. But chortle was in the book If You're Happy and You Know It. So she's remembered that word, and she's likes the word chortle. The sub can float, the kid can read, the tub can sink, the nose can smell, the fur can cuddle. So does she know how to use the word chortle? Look down at the sentence at the bottom of her page, and she writes, the kid reads while the tub sinks. The cub chortles while he reads. So what kind of a book is he reading? A book that has lots of humor in it. Okay? Then we can move on from here. Brian Cleary has given us a book that has tons of adverbs in it, so that we can now start to describe the verbs that we've been listing. And this book is called Dearly, Nearly, Insincerely, and it tells us adverbs tell us when and how, and then it goes on and on with lots of things about adverbs. And here's an example of a page that we have added lots of adverbs to. So the frisky little pup barks loudly. The wet nose drips like melting snow, so we can put in similes. The paws are as soft as puffy as a pillow. And the floppy gray ear flaps wildly. The wiggly tail wags. So there's no end to the kinds of vocabulary you can develop, the skills of decoding that you can include when you draw and label by starting with the parts and then moving on out to the adjectives and verbs and adverbs. And the children who can do those kind of activities, when they go to writing sentences, remember I gave you some research that says that scientists believe children form sentences by combining noun and verb phrases. So we're building lots of noun and verb phrases in our labeling, and now the children can combine those to produce interesting, exciting, complex sentences rather than the really simple little sentences that we often see in our books. So thank you once more for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next section.